Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Rick and Morty is back, and so am I, with our very own dimension-hopping, time-traveling mad scientist, Craig. Now, everyone is doing a lot of coverage for Rick and Morty. It's all about the theories and the interpretations of what goes on in every single episode that they release every week. It's just that kind of show. Everybody loves and lives to overanalyze this kind of thing. Don't think for a moment that the writers don't know that. And this is why the first couple of seasons will always be better, because of your expectations, and the writers need to try and subvert them all the time, ultimately changing what the course of the show is actually about, what it started as and what it is now. The original magic might be lost along the way. Yes, I am looking at you, Game of Thrones and Wizarding World and Star Wars. By the way, definitely going to do some Star Wars reviews soon, so subscribe so you don't miss out on those. Before we get too tangled up in the philosophy of Rick and Morty and all of those other shows, this is Doc and Marty. Heard of these guys before? So we're going back to the beginning, to what inspired Rick and Morty in the first place, Back to the Future. And yes, this is going to get confusing. Let's meet the two main characters from Back to the Future with the help of the Funko Pops here. Then we'll see how this spawned something like that. Rick and Morty, of course. But is it really completely different? Or is it exactly the same? Or am I talking complete nonsense? Of course... Craig, you can handle the pops, right? Well, I'll explain. Yeah. So which one do you want to start with? Doesn't matter, take both. Take them. There you go. Okay, if you want your own Back to the Future Funko Pops, link in the description. Which one are you going with? Marty. Alright, so Marty is a bit of a stereotype and the typical interpretation of a red-blooded American teenager from the time period. Don't ask me what that actually is, because I have no idea. Probably has something to do with the jacket, maybe the headphones, and the habit of exposing himself to massive danger pretty much all the time. The reason he's friends with Dr. Emmet Brown, or Doc as he calls him for short, is that he decided to trespass on Doc's property after being told that Doc Brown was a lunatic. So, not the sharpest tool in the shed. Yeah. The pop accurately portrays the strange fashion of the period, lots of layers for some reason, but it doesn't tell much about the story. The box gives a bit more of a hint, with all the lightning and fire and the clock in the background, but that box is long gone since Craig got hold of it anyway. Let's summarize. Teenager meets crazy old scientist. Scientist immediately recruits him to assist with his dangerous experiments involving time travel and a nuclear reactor, and of course it pulls him into a life-and-death situation almost immediately, where the only way to survive is to travel through space and time. Not Morty at all, right? Nah. Let's take a look at Dr. Emmet Brown. Next pop, Craig. Again, more of the famous fiery car tracks and some lightning around the box, and a little clock. Big clock. Craig is making short work of this box at the moment, just to give him a hint of what the story contains, but I think Doc definitely looks like he fits the part in this one. In a sci-fi movie in general, with his long grey and crazy hair, not as crazy as it should be. He's also got white overalls with orange accents, and a pair of goggles and a remote control. The pop portrays the scene where he's remotely piloting his DeLorean up to 88 miles an hour to test the time travel device, the flux capacitor, which is powered by a nuclear reactor, by the way. With his dog Einstein on board, let's think about that for a moment. First of all, he owns a DeLorean, which means he's an utter madman. Next, he experiments on his pet dog all the time, including the very first time he tries to activate this particular invention. So let's just say Marty and Einstein are very lucky that it worked out, and Marty was either really dumb or just completely insane to go along with it, right? Could Doc Brown already know that it worked before he built it for the first time? Stick around to find out.
Plumbuses. Everyone has a plumbus in their home.
There may be more impactful spoilers from here on out, you've been warned. Craig has disappeared, as you can see, with no more figurines to deal with. I think he was getting a bit bored. So, without Craig, time for things to get even weirder. But first, let's make sure we're all still following the overarching Rick and Morty comparison. So, what do we have? We have an old man who's invented a way to teleport through time and space, and he recruits a teenager to help him with his adventures, and then immediately creates multiple life-threatening situations for him and Marty, the teenager, to deal with. Great Scott! Back to the Future has some weirdness going on, and it's way more difficult than I thought to make any sense of the time paradoxes that it creates. The whole thing is just a big paradox. So this is why Rick and Morty haven't done time travel before, and of course this is where the stories diverge in a big way. There's a lot of speculation as to who Rick and Morty is about, whether it's about Morty himself, the Morty Show, or if Rick is the main character and Morty's just a supplement. But in Back to the Future, let's see what happens. First of all, I'm enlisting the smart Rick and Morty fans in the comments, please. You guys are all supposed to be really good at this kind of thing, so let's get started. I found two ways time travel in Back to the Future kinda works. And I wanted to say that Doc knew it'll all be okay when he irresponsibly sends Marty into the past, and Einstein for that matter, because they're on a fixed timeline, and he already met Marty 30 years earlier, so he knew everything would be fine. But then, Marty's future is entirely different when he gets back, which means the timeline did actually change based on his activities and his actions in the past, and the original Doc wouldn't have known the first time. So are there diverging timelines? Were there two versions of Doc and Marty? Nope, doesn't make sense either. Anything Marty did in the past wouldn't cause him to disappear in that case, and of course he does. What's going on here? This is an interesting one. Instead of everyone living on the same timeline, Marty seems to have his own timeline, where as long as he doesn't create a paradox that prevents himself from existing, he can change the course of his own future as much as he likes. Which means the entire universe is just for him. Nobody else actually matters. Nothing else matters apart from himself. It's his own perspective. What he does, and only what he does, can impact on his universe. So he's basically in a dream state or in a computer simulation or whatever your preference is for that kind of theory. Otherwise, there's another way around this. There is a larger loop than we realize, which we can't see from this perspective. Perhaps the flux capacitor isn't affecting time at all and is actually allowing travel through a higher dimension or multiple dimensions. From that perspective, there's still a fixed forward progression and he's rather traveling through a higher dimension, which means there's no paradox because he's affecting something different to what he started with. Okay, so all of you are very smart Rick and Morty viewers. Help me out in the comments, please. Next time we're supposed to be doing a movie, Frozen 2, but YouTube might think it's a bit too kid-friendly for this channel. So we'll see what happens. Subscribe so you don't miss out on whatever it is that's going to happen next week. Until then, you can be a time traveler too, and watch any of the videos from our past any way you want. Goodbye.